the shadows of war descend. In the turbulent year of 1968, as the Vietnam War reached its brutal zenith with the Tet Offensive shaking the foundations of both sides, the province of Quang Tri became a symbol of unrelenting conflict. The landscape, once a serene blend of rolling hills, dense jungles, and meandering rivers like the Thach Han, was now scarred by craters from artillery shells and littered with the remnants of destroyed villages. Nguyen Van Hung, a 22-year-old from the impoverished rural village of Ha Tinh in northern Vietnam, had been thrust into this chaos. Born into a family of rice farmers, Hung grew up under the thatched roofs of his family's modest home, where life revolved around the cycles of planting and harvesting. His father had died young from illness, leaving his mother to raise him and his siblings with stories of resilience and national pride. When the call to arms came, Hung enlisted in the People's Army of Vietnam, driven by a mix of patriotic fervor and the harsh realities of colonialism's lingering shadows. He was assigned to the 320th Division, a unit known for its tenacity in the Central Highlands, where they patrolled treacherous terrains to counter American incursions. Hung's days were a grueling routine of marches through mud-slicked trails, constant vigilance against ambushes, and the ever-present fear of death. The air was thick with the humid scent of tropical foliage mixed with the acrid smell of gunpowder and burning villages. He carried an AK-47 slung over his shoulder, a backpack weighed down with rations of dried rice and fish sauce, and a small photo of his fiancée, Lon, tucked into his shirt pocket, a reminder of the peaceful life he yearned to return to. As his unit advanced along the Thach Han River, intelligence reports warned of increased American activity. Marines from the U.S. 1st Division were pushing north, aiming to secure key supply routes. The tension was palpable. Whispers among comrades spoke of heavy casualties in recent skirmishes, and Hung often lay awake at night, his mind racing with thoughts of survival. "What if I never see home again?" he pondered, staring at the starless sky obscured by monsoon clouds. The war had already claimed his younger brother in a battle near Hue, leaving a void in his heart that fueled both his resolve and his growing weariness of the endless violence. On March 15th, as dark clouds gathered for an impending storm, Hung's platoon moved stealthily through a flooded forest. The water reached their knees, turning every step into a laborious effort against the sucking mud. Birds had fled the area, leaving an eerie silence broken only by the distant rumble of artillery. Suddenly, the calm shattered. A U.S. patrol emerged from the opposite bank, their M16 rifles glinting in the dim light. The firefight erupted like a thunderstorm. Bullets whizzed through the air, grenades exploded in sprays of earth and water, and shouts in English and Vietnamese mingled with cries of pain. Hung fired instinctively, his heart pounding as he saw figures fall on both sides. The clash was brief but devastating, with his unit gaining the upper hand through superior knowledge of the terrain. As the smoke cleared and the rain began to pour, Hung surveyed the aftermath. Bodies strewn across the riverbank, weapons discarded in the mud, and the metallic tang of blood heavy in the air. It was in this moment of quiet horror that he heard a faint, desperate groan from the underbrush, signaling the beginning of a life-altering encounter. Part 2. The Encounter and the Weight of Choice. As the rain intensified, turning the battlefield into a quagmire, Hung cautiously approached the source of the groan, his boots sinking into the soft earth with each step. His comrades were busy collecting ammunition and tending to their wounded, their voices muffled by the downpour. The underbrush was thick with vines and ferns, providing natural camouflage that had likely saved the hidden figure from immediate detection. Pushing aside the wet leaves, Hung's breath caught in his throat. There lay an American soldier, his uniform caked in mud and blood, a deep gash across his chest from shrapnel. This was James "Jim" Carter, a 24-year-old sergeant from rural Ohio, who had enlisted seeking adventure and a sense of duty, only to find himself in a foreign hell far from his family's farm. Jim's face was pale, his blue eyes flickering with pain and fear, and his hand weakly clutched at his dog tags, whispering fragmented pleas in English. "Help, medic, please, God." Hung froze, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Trained to see Americans as imperial aggressors, invaders who bombed villages and supported the Saigon regime, he felt an instinctive surge of anger. "This man could have killed my brothers," he thought, gripping his rifle tighter. Yet, as Jim's eyes met his, Hung saw vulnerability, a young man, not unlike himself, with dreams shattered by war. Memories flooded back, of his mother's teachings on compassion, of Buddhist principles from his village temple emphasizing mercy even toward enemies, and of his own fears of dying alone in the jungle. The rain pounded relentlessly, soaking through his uniform, as if urging a decision. Around them, the forest seemed to hold its breath. Distant thunder rolled like artillery, and the scent of wet earth mixed with the coppery smell of blood. Hung glanced back at his unit, knowing that revealing Jim could mean a quick execution, but abandoning him felt like betraying his humanity. In a pivotal moment, Hung lowered his weapon and knelt beside Jim. "Toi si Japon," he murmured in Vietnamese, though knowing it wouldn't be understood. Using his combat knife, he cut strips from his own spare cloth bandage to press against the wound, stemming the flow of blood as best he could with trembling hands. Jim winced but managed a grateful nod, his labored breathing the only sound amid the storm. Hung then dragged Jim deeper into a natural hollow formed by fallen logs and overhanging branches, camouflaging the spot with foliage to hide from patrols. The effort was exhausting, his muscles aching from the weight and the mud, but a sense of purpose drove him. As night approached, Hung realized this act could cost him everything: court-martial, accusations of treason, but in his heart, he knew it was right. "War makes monsters of us all," he reflected silently, "but I won't let it take my soul." Part 3. A night of shared humanity. With darkness enveloping the forest, Hung committed to staying with Jim through the night, a risky choice that meant evading his unit's roll call. He fashioned a small, concealed fire using dry tinder from his pack, its flickering light casting dancing shadows on the surrounding trees. The rain had eased to a steady drizzle, but the cold seeped into their bones, and the jungle came alive with nocturnal sounds: crickets chirping, distant howls of animals, and the occasional crack of branches under unseen feet. Hung shared his meager supplies, a few rice balls wrapped in banana leaves and water from his canteen, feeding Jim small portions to combat his weakening state. Jim's fever raged, causing him to shiver uncontrollably, and in his delirium, he spoke of home. "Mary, our farm, the baby girl. I promised I'd come back." Though the words were foreign, Hung inferred their meaning from Jim's gestures toward his wedding ring and a crumpled photo from his pocket, showing a smiling woman and infant. This vulnerability stirred something deep in Hung. He began sharing his own stories, using simple gestures and drawings in the mud to bridge the language gap. He sketched his village's rice fields, pointing to it and saying, "Na toi, family," evoking memories of harvest festivals, laughter with Lon under moonlight, and the pain of his brother's death. "Chien tran lay het," he said softly, meaning, "War takes everything." Jim, sensing the shared sorrow, reached out a hand, their fingers briefly clasping in silent solidarity. The fire's warmth contrasted the cold night, symbolizing a fragile bond amid hostility. Hung reflected on the war's absurdity: two young men from opposite worlds, forced into enmity by powers beyond their control. As hours passed, they exchanged more. Hung hummed a Vietnamese folk song of longing, while Jim whispered American tunes, creating a surreal harmony. The connection grew, transcending uniforms and flags, reminding Hung that beneath the soldier's exterior lay universal dreams of peace and love. Part 4. Dawn's Reckoning and Bitter Farewell. As dawn broke with a hazy light filtering through the canopy, Hung's unit returned, their footsteps crunching on wet leaves. The air was fresh with post-rain clarity, but tension mounted as comrades discovered the hidden American. Shouts erupted. "Traitor! He's the enemy! Kill him!" one yelled, rifles raised. Hung stood protectively in front, his voice steady despite fear. "He's a man like us. A father, a son. Mercy now might end this hatred someday." The debate raged, drawing on unit codes, personal losses, and whispers of propaganda. The leader, a battle-hardened captain, weighed the risks. Harboring an enemy could invite disaster, but Hung's plea resonated, reminding them of their own humanity. Reluctantly, they agreed. Hung could escort Jim to a nearby American outpost, but must return immediately, swearing secrecy. The journey was arduous, Hung supporting Jim's weight through slippery paths, evading patrols. Jim, semi-conscious, murmured thanks, his grip tight on Hung's arm. At the outpost edge, under a clearing sky, they parted. Jim pressed a dog tag into Hung's hand, tears in his eyes. "Brother, thank you." Hung nodded, a lump in his throat, and vanished into the forest. Back with his unit, he faced silent judgment but no punishment, the incident buried like many war secrets. The farewell lingered in Hung's mind, a beacon of hope amid ongoing battles. Part 5. Echoes of War in Peacetime. The war dragged on until 1975's fall of Saigon, but for Hung, survival meant carrying invisible wounds. Returning to Ha Tinh, he found his village scarred, bombed fields, orphaned children, and his mother aged beyond recognition. Lon had married another, believing him dead, shattering his heart. He rebuilt slowly, marrying a kind widow named Mai, fathering 2 sons, and farming the land. Yet, nightmares plagued him, replaying Quang Tri's horrors, Jim's face haunting his dreams. He joined veterans groups, sharing sanitized stories, but kept Jim's tale secret, fearing stigma. Economic reforms in the 1980s brought hope, but poverty lingered. In quiet moments, Hung pondered the war's cost: lost youth, divided families, and a nation healing. A 1995 TV program about American veterans sparked recognition. Jim's story aired, mirroring his own. With help from peace organizations, letters began, bridging decades of silence. Part 6. Reunion, Redemption, and Lasting Legacy. By 2000, normalized U.S.-Vietnam relations enabled reunion. Jim, now retired with a family, flew to Hanoi, bearing gifts, a watch engraved "Savior and Friend," and family photos. Their embrace at a peace ceremony was tearful, applause echoing as they shared stories. Hung of rebuilding Vietnam, Jim of his daughter's success thanks to survival. They became advocates, speaking at conferences, their tale in books and films symbolizing reconciliation. In old age, Hung taught grandchildren, compassion defeats hatred. Their friendship endured via emails, a testament to humanity's triumph over war.